Transcendental Transformation, the place where spirituality and transformation unite. Host Miss Raina imparts truth so that you can break through your limiting beliefs and evolve into a deeper consciousness. As you go about your day, remember, before every breakthrough, there is a breakdown. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Transcendental Transformation. I'm your host, Miss Raina, and today is Tuesday, May 12th, 2020. As always, we are coming live from the Sirius Star System studios right here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I hope all is well with everybody. So, we, at least in Florida, we're finally out the house. Yes, our governor, DeSantis, finally allowed us and opened up some of the restaurants, or I think all of the restaurants, but only at 25% capacity, but you don't know how good that feels. It just feels like we're kind of out of jail a little bit. Even though I love my stay-at-home time and stuff, well, I guess when you can't go anywhere and you know you can't go anywhere and there's nothing open, it kind of makes you appreciate a little bit all the good little stuff that we take for granted, right? So, this past Monday was Mother's Day, and so happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, and it's got to be hard for a lot of people. Oh, and it was Caleb's birthday this past May 7th, so I want to wish him a happy birthday as well. And but yeah, it's kind of hard for a lot of people who are celebrating their birthdays right now in April, May, or holidays and stuff. I called my mom, and she was, I guess they couldn't do anything because Illinois is shut down completely, and I guess they're saying that they're gonna keep Illinois shut down to the end of June. Well, I'm supposed to go there during July, so I'm really hoping that they open up Illinois, because that's gonna really not be fun if I go to Chicago and I can't do anything. So, but anyways, I want to send a special Mother's Day, to my mom, and my mom is such a wonderful person. She really is. I can't thank her enough, to be honest with you. I don't know where I'd be without her. She has taught me so much. I get a lot of my strength, a lot of my determination, my independence from her. She always taught me to fight for what I believe in, no matter who believes in you, or if they support you, or if you're doing it on your own. And she was always a tough cookie, and I liked that because no one was allowed to mess with her family or her children, and and I'm glad that I got a little bit of that fire from her. So thank you, Mom. I love you, and I hope I get to spend many more Mother's Days with you. So, all right, guys, as always, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, and LinkedIn. So make sure you go there. If you're on Facebook or Twitch, make sure you hit us up and chat with us a little bit. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit them up in the chat, and we will be there to discuss. So, I had a couple questions this week from a couple people, and one of the questions was someone asked me when I learned the Eightfold Path to Enlightenment if I started teaching this to others. And a lot of people don't realize that I just learned about the Eightfold Path to Enlightenment, the Buddhist way, probably about maybe 7-8 days ago. And people look, and I think it's funny because this information is out there, and you really, my teachings and what I've been teaching people for my whole life has always, like I've said, come through my channel, come through, I don't know, some people call it the Akashic Record, some people call it the universe, some people call it so many different things, but that's where my information always comes from. I saw this, I ran across the Eightfold Path to Enlightenment from Buddha about a week ago, and I understood it because I've been teaching it for so long. Well, in a different way, but there's a lot of similarities to a lot of things. And and that's what I try to teach everybody, is that information is out there. And as much as we think we need all these books and all these wise teachers and all these people teaching us all this information, if you just, go inside and open up yourself and allow yourself to, to receive the information of the universe, and expand your consciousness, all this information is really out there. And so when you run across something like, on the internet, or someone speaking about the Eightfold Path, all of a sudden things click, because you're like, oh, okay, I can understand these concepts even though I've really never understood them. So yes, the information is out there, and it's all kind of together if you just allow yourself to open up. But no, that's my little dirty little secret for the week. Yeah, I just learned about this not too long ago, and there was a lot of similarities to what I teach and stuff. So I said, okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's see, and let's apply it to today's society. The other question that I received was, someone asked me if, I talk about enlightenment, and I was talking about enlightenment obviously last week, because we were doing the part one of the Eightfold Path, which had to do with the Four Noble Truths. And well, today we were or this week I wanted to go into enlightenment a little bit, because someone asked that, and I think that's a very important question for us to understand, is what is enlightenment? I mean, we have all these ideas, we think that it's an end goal, and for a lot of us, we think that we are running a race, that we're, that time is linear, and time is not linear. It seems that way because we're in the third and fourth dimension, or basically the third dimension, but the fourth interacts with us a lot. And so time isn't linear, and so we think about that because we see ourselves moving forward in a way, because we age, and because that's how we tell time. But when we come to an understanding of the universe and the different dimensions, and how life is, and how we interact with all the different dimensions, and how we evolve, then we understand that, that it isn't linear, and enlightenment really isn't an end goal. And I really want to make that clear to a lot of people, because I know there's a lot of religions out there, and a lot of even spiritual practices, and we all think that we're trying to reach enlightenment in order for us to get out of here, right? And I say that because that's true. I mean, I don't know how many students I have, and even when I ask this question, I say, well, what do you think enlightenment is? And people look at it, it's like it's an escape from reality. It's escape, and it's a way to escape our human existence from pain and suffering. And that's such a poor way of thinking about things, if you really understand things, because enlightenment isn't meant to be an escape, and we're not really trying to escape life. We're not really trying not to escape the world or our experiences. And as tough as a lot of our experiences are, for the most part, we have to understand that we're here for a reason, and we're here to experience. We're here to acknowledge. We're here to gain perspective. And we think that we're just going to, each lifetime, that every lifetime is just a do-over and a punishment until we get it right. And every time we mess up, here's karma to bite us in the butt, and wreck us and make us all miserable. And in order for us to break that chain, we have to reach enlightenment. And that's just not true. And but we have to learn to ease our pain. We have to understand our pain and suffering. We have to transform our pain and suffering into something that's a little greater than what we know. And for a lot of us, we don't really know what that is. We don't know how to transform our pain and suffering. We become victims to it. And this is why for so many lifetimes we suffer what seems like karmic debt, or we seem like we're repeating these lessons over and over. It's not that we're repeating these lessons over and over. It's the fact that we have to gain a perspective in different points of view. So, I'm Miss Raina this lifetime. Hey, I'm just a character this lifetime, and this is the character I'm playing. And, and if I chose to come back, which I won't need to, but if I chose to come back, then what would end up happening is that there's certain lessons that I would bring back, but since I'm a different person, maybe a girl again, maybe a boy, then all of a sudden, and maybe I would grow up in a different part of the country or a different race, and then I would have a different perspective of it. and then it gains knowledge, and suddenly our suffering and our pain doesn't become all these ideas anymore. And so we're not really looking for a way out. We're transforming those ideas, we're transforming those pain and sufferings, we're transforming those experiences into perspective. And that's what we call becoming enlightened. Because when we become enlightened, we become this idea of knowledge. We become this idea of wisdom through perspective. And that's the only way we can gain perspective, is through experience. And so a lot of times, especially in religion, we think that enlightenment is to become God or a goddess or the universe, or to become next to God. And it really gives, and that was always my problem with religion, is we always had this problem. And even spirituality too, there's a lot of spiritualities that put a god or goddess above here, and you're way down here, and you have to constantly try to climb a ladder to reach this almost insurmountable idea. And it's so not far from the truth. If we truly understood the ideas of what we were experiencing, then we would do that. And God is not what we think it is. God is not a person. And I just want to give a little bit of a warning for people who may have some strong beliefs on what they believe God is. But through my experience and through just my many, millions of lifetimes, I have learned that, that God is not what we think it is. Because every time I try to communicate with the other dimensions, especially the ninth dimension, what we end up finding is the idea of what we think God is. And so a lot of times we think that God is a person, or God is this universe, God is this all bright and light thing. And it's not. God is actually this void, this darkness, this just consciousness that doesn't have light, that doesn't have dark, that just is. And that is such an amazing idea to wrap your mind around, because when you experience that idea, because there is no good or bad or light or dark or positive or negative, it just is in consciousness and perspective and thought, and that's what it is. All of a sudden you can begin to walk away from all of this, because you realize that us and these human bodies, these experiences, are nothing more than just a thought being projected by who we are. And that thought comes from this idea, from all of consciousness, that brings us into this idea that we call God. And one of the most enlightening things that we have to learn to understand, and we have to learn this at a heart level, a truly heart level, is that we are God. We have the ability to create and destroy and transform all that we want in life. And when we understand that idea, when we understand the idea that we're not trying to look, that we're trying to run away from our pain and suffering, that we are the God, and we are the goddesses, and we are the creators of our own evolutionary process, and we have total control over everything, that is what becomes enlightenment. And when you can truly grasp that at a soul level, you truly realize that everything we believe, there's no reason to believe in things anymore. There's no reason to be victimized to things. There's no reason to feel sorrow or pain and suffering anymore. And not in the sense that it all goes away, magical wand, and poof, we're gone. But it means that we transform ourselves into something greater than the low vibrations we feel here on the third dimension. And so if we're discussing enlightenment, and that's kind of what we were talking about through the Four Noble Phases and what we're about to get into with the Eightfold Path, because enlightenment, we have to unlearn. And I teach this to all my students all the time, is you have to unlearn everything that you've learned. Everything that you believe in, you have to let it go. And you have to say, you know what, I'm going to start from scratch. I know I was taught all these ideas, but I'm going to start from scratch. And then I'm going to see what the universe gives me, what knowledge the universe gives me. And through that knowledge, through that learning, without judgment, without ego, without trying to be right or wrong, and that understanding that and using that knowledge and perspective. And when we gain that knowledge, when we gain that experience, and we gain that awareness, that is enlightenment. So we understand? We're clear? All right, good. So, we have to understand that, because we have to understand that it's not a race. And this is why it's not a race. It is so important for us to understand that, because it is so important for us to understand. And a lot of times, people have also asked me, I've been talking about the year 2025 a lot, because there's a huge change that's transforming right now. The ball's already rolling down the hill, and it's going to peak around 2025. It's going to get really messy around 2024, peak when it's 2025, and it's still going to carry over into 2026. And it's still going to carry over for, decades after that. But the initial brunt of it is going to hit us hard, and it's going to be rough. And those of us who choose not to make this jump, and that are going to live in this very nasty, very argumentative anger, very dense level of the third dimension here on Earth. And those of us that transform ourselves and make the jump through letting go of our ego, letting go of our belief systems, cleansing ourselves of our pride and the things that hold us back, that we know everything and my way's right, and all Miss Raina's 5 no-nos. You have to let go of the ego. You have to let go of all that stuff in order to make the jump. You have to be willing to accept new information about you and about your experiences in order to make this jump. And a lot of us, unfortunately, aren't going to make it, because a lot of us believe that we're more awake than we are, and a lot of us believe that our way is right. And unfortunately, those souls are going to be stuck in a world of pain and suffering for a very long time, until they learn, decades or lifetimes down the roads, that to make the jump and to transform through us. But those of us who are watching this show are usually kind of a little bit more, but we really have to, over the next four years, you really have to kick it into overdrive and be a lot more reflective, be a lot more awareness, and catch our egos and catch what we're doing in order for us to make that jump. So this is why, actually I'm noticing, let's go take a break first, and we'll get into the Eightfold Path right after these messages from the Life of Raina.
A message from the Life of Raina. We live in a world faced with many tough challenges. Our lives become chaotic and filled with disaster ever so quickly, most of the time before we even realize. Our issues beat down our mental mindset, and an imbalance of emotions become prevalent. The Life of Raina is dedicated to helping people on the deepest spiritual level. Miss Raina, the creator of Transcendental Development and Growth, works on your core issues and finds the solutions which allow you to break free from the emotional bondages of life, helping you achieve the life you've always wanted to live. Isn't it time that you lived life for you? Call the Life of Raina, 561-846-2190. and schedule your appointment today. That's 561-846-2190. Or email thelifeofraina@icloud.com.
All right, everybody, we are back, and if you're just joining us, I'm your host, Miss Raina, for Transcendental Transformation, and we are about to go into the Eightfold Path of Enlightenment. And so, as I said last week, we are going to use the term right. For all of these Eightfold Paths, we are going to use the word right. And I don't mean right as in right and wrong or good versus bad. We mean the word right, Buddha used the word right as in Sanskrit, but it actually translates to the wise or skillful decision, the wise or skillful use of your knowledge in order for you to gain full perspective of these ideas. And so every time I say right, I'm not meaning right versus wrong. I just want to clarify that, because I think it's really good for us to understand that and make sure that we understand. So let me list the Eightfold, and then we'll go through them one by one and kind of, get a little grasp of what they really are. So the first one is the right view or understanding, insight to true nature or reality. The second one is right intention, an unselfish desire or realization. The next one is right speech, and that one is use speech compassionately. The fourth one is right action, and that is use ethical use right action, compassion. So you want to use ethical conduct and manifest on a compassionate level. The next one is right livelihood. So making a living, we're going to talk about ethical, non-ethical harms of means, right effort to cultivate wholesomeness, right mindfulness, which is like a whole body awareness, and right concentration, which is like a meditation or practice. So let's talk about this first one and see how we can apply this to today's world, because that's what we're really wondering. Because hey, we 3,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago, that's not our world anymore. So the right view or understanding. Remember, right does not mean right or wrong. It means like a wise view or understanding, a skillful, an awareness view. So into insight to true nature of reality. So in other words, are we seeing our life, and are we seeing life as it is, or are we seeing it with a skewed perspective? For many of us, we do. And I always say that we walk around with beer goggles, and the reason why I do that is because you know what that term is. If any of us have ever gone out partying a little bit and we've had a little bit too much liquor, everybody in the world and everything becomes amazing and awesome and beautiful, and our choices are not always beneficial to who we are at the time, and sometimes we make some really interesting choices, I should say. And and this is us in our life because of our experiences. So in today's world, we're under so much pressure of who we are, what we're supposed to be, what we're doing, and where we're supposed to go. We're always in this rush. And here in America, it is a very high-fast, high-paced world. It is either get on the train and get going for the rest of your life, or get left behind and you lose. And we really have to change this idea, because this idea, and through our experiences, this idea dictates kind of how we see the world and kind of how we see what's going on. And when we look at the world and we look at nature and we look at our experiences, a lot of times we see things only from one perspective, from a first perspective. We see it from our perspective, which is very subjective, right? Our perspective is very subjective based on who we are and what we've experienced. And so if you've grown up in a very nice area with very wonderful, loving parents, and you really never had any pain and suffering, well, then life may be all sunshine and rainbows and roses and unicorns and that. And if you grew up in a very poor area, maybe in the city, and that where there was a lot of gang activity or just a lot of poverty, and you had holes in the floor and you slept on a blanket most of your life, and getting bread was like a big thing, well, then you may have a different perspective on life. And our perspective is really skewing the way the world works. And so Buddha says, and the Eightfold Path says, insight to true nature and reality, seeing the truth for how it is and not in our mind. And so what that is we have to learn to detach from our ideas. We have to learn to detach from the ideas of what we think the world is based on our experiences. So if I'm one of those, and if people who know me know I'm very excitable, and and I dealt with a lot of depression, I dealt with a lot of anxiety and PTSD and all sorts of stuff, panic attacks, and for a long time that dictated my life. And it dictated my life because I viewed the world as a vengeful place out to get you, that's just going to try to crush you, and that's just going to be mean to you. And every time you if you're nice, or every time you try to get ahead in the world, someone vicious is just going to come and take it away. Well, why did I view it that way? Well, because when I was young, I used to get beat up all the time. I was bullied like every day of my life. I had some family issues that created that, and I had some personal things go on that created that. And so my experience, my beer goggles went on, and all I saw was a skewed idea of what I thought the truth of reality is. And this is what Buddha says. We have to have the right or wise view and understanding of the world, of the reality around us. And this is true. We must learn to detach from our emotions. We must learn to detach from the things we see in order for us to see what it is really in hand. And I like the fact that this is number one. And the reason why I like the fact that this is number one when I read this was because this is so important. The first thing that I teach a lot of my students is this, is you have to recognize where your emotions are dictating your perspective. And so our perspective is dictated, again, based on our idea of what our experiences are. And so we have to learn to understand when our emotions are starting to skew, when our perspective is starting to skew the reality of everything. I talked to someone, yesterday was one of the first times I went out, and I went to the local kava bar, and I talked to a couple of people, actually a bunch of people, but one of them made an interesting comment. And they said, Miss Raina, I always pick the wrong person to date. And when I do, I let them, they're being them and they're doing their thing, and then I find some way just to like cut them out of my life, and boom, they're done. They didn't do it my way, and and I just cut it out. And I said, oh, you're one of those that are, judgmental, huh? You're one of those that have to have everything your way, and if it's not your way, then it's highway for the other person. And they kind of laughed and said, yeah, that's right. And I said, and I remembered this, and I said, you know what? You have to stop seeing things in a perspective that is only yours. You see things in a perspective of pain and suffering, and thus you will always judge others based on your suffering, because when they do something that you view as wrong, or they do something that you view as not the way that you would do it, then what ends up happening is your reality, the way you're seeing the reality and your understanding has changed. And you purposely do that because you want to create the pain. Remember, our brain loves patterns. It loves to repeat patterns over and over and over. And so if our pattern is pain and suffering, then it is dictated by it's saying, hey, this is something that I want. And in order for me to gain pain, I'm going to create this situation that I want this relationship. They're going to do everything in their power to aggravate me and to make me upset. And then I'm just going to cut them out of my life and get angry and then say, see, I told you so. And this is not the right view. This is not a wise view. This is not a wise understanding of reality. It is a very skewed one. The second one is going to be right intention, unselfish desire, realize enlightenment. So what is the wise intention? What is the desire behind what you do? And this is important because the desire behind what you do is mostly selfish. It's always selfish. Until you become a person of perspective and reflective, then you're always selfish. Even if you say, well, I want to go help the world. And I always tell people, I always ask them, well, why do you want to help the world? Well, because it makes me feel good. Helping others makes me feel good. Well, that's a selfish desire. You're helping others because you want to feel good. Well, yeah, that's true, but I really like helping people too. Well, yeah, but you're doing it because of this. Well, why do you want to become, why do you want to become what you want to become? Well, I want to make money. I want to have a family. I want to do all these things. And it sounds selfish because there's these desires for us. There's a desire in us to create, to connect, but in ourselves to take. And so we have to understand our desire for doing everything. I've mentioned many times on the show that, especially down here in South Florida, there are a lot of people in the spiritual community that are just trying to be the big healer, that are just trying to make, the next name for themselves so they can have millions of dollars and be the face of healing and their way. And it's a very selfish desire because they don't realize that healing and helping others doesn't always mean money, doesn't always mean fame. And really, there's a lot of people in the world that are the most wise, that do the most for this world, and you never know their name. They don't make a lot of money. They do what they need to do because they know it has to be done. A lot of people ask for, why we do the homeless drive. I do the homeless drive because it needs to be done. I don't do it for myself. Any one of us can be homeless at any time. And, I look at it and I say, these people are suffering, and, there should be people out there for them. There should be people out there, because if I was in the same situation, or if my friends were in the same situation, I would hope that there would be people who are selfless to help them out. And so when we do the homeless drive, it's one of those desires that I know that needs to be done because it needs to be done for others. It has nothing to do with myself. And it's the same with the radio show. I do this show for you guys. I do this show because I know there are people out there that can't always afford to work with me one-on-one, and sometimes they need to, and sometimes this is a way for them to get help. This is a way for them to go through some transformation without having to pay someone $10,000, and that's not how much I charge. But there's a lot of healers out there charging $10,000 a day or more to just sit with them for one day. And so these desires, these intentions behind your actions, why are you doing what you're doing? Why is the idea of what you're doing, is it to, like, enlightenment? Why are we trying to reach enlightenment? We were talking about that a little bit earlier. Well, are we reaching enlightenment because we don't want to be in pain and suffering? Yeah, most of the time we are, and that's a selfish desire. If you go on Facebook or you go on social media and you see all these people posting, I belong to this one group, and I belonged to it because I thought it was going to have dialogue and people talking about perspective in life. And no, it's really people just trying to up one and trying to show that they have more knowledge than others, and they'll tell you that. And to that's the desire. When the desire, as we talked about in the Four Noble Truths, the desire of greed, that's greed. That's the desire. And we have to come from an intention that is selfless. We have to come from intention of perspective, and that's how we get it. If you're asking me right now, and I don't know why this is coming in, but Miss Raina, how do we have desire? How do we have the wise intention from an unselfish desire? And that's perspective. You must be able to look at yourself in a different perspective and understand why it is you're doing what you're doing, in order for you to gain that, hey, I don't need to do this to become famous. I don't need to do this to gain likes or to be loved or to be acknowledged. I don't ever want to be thanked for what I do. I don't like to be thanked. If someone thanks me, I say you're welcome because I want to be gracious. But to be honest with you, I don't like to be thanked for what I do because it's not something to be thankful for. It's not something to be thanked about. I was on that path too, and I'm still on my path. And those paths, are, and we should give and share with each other. It's not that you're owed something for doing something for somebody, or you owe them, or they owe you. It should be shared because we're all in the same experience, and that is an unselfish desire. So let's go. The materialistic world, I want to talk about that with the unselfish desire. One more thing is our materialistic world. It is okay to have nice things. It is fine. Like, I have a nice studio here. I enjoy it. I have the technology because I know this is the technology that is going to help me with what I want to do. But I don't look at it and say, well, wow, I need this technology to make me feel something. And so to become unselfish in what we do, we must detach from the materialistic world. It's okay to have a nice TV. It's okay to have a nice car. It's okay to have that. But when you're chasing, when you feel the need that you have to have something to become something, that is always a selfish desire. So the third one, and I actually should label these because maybe my Padawan will label it for next week, because they're all in the whole order, and I always want to make sure we're on the right one. So the next one is the right speech, which is the wise speech. Use speech compassionately. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? Use speech compassionately. Well, that can mean many different things. It could mean realizing the effects of our words, right? It could be not just how we use our words, but the tone we use our words in, right? It can be compassionate. It doesn't mean having to be a pushover all the time to everybody. Hey, if someone is trying to do something, if someone's trying to, step over a boundary, then sometimes we can use speech to be compassionate, but to establish the boundary, right? We don't have to be harsh and cut people through. That was one of the things that I used to struggle with when I was younger, and once in a while I do. I still, once in a while, sometimes I'm very blunt, and I don't mean to be blunt in a way of being harsh. I believe in just being honest with people, and sometimes that honesty can, take over someone's perspective due to their insecurities. And so we must have that perspective of how we speak to somebody, and not just in voice, but in body language too. In Chicago, we were brought up to be very tough, so we had to walk a certain way, we had to wear hats and clothes a certain way, and we had to stand a certain way, and it was just all body language. Well, that's speech, that's communication. And when we realize that our body language, as much as our voice and our intentions behind it, come through in direction, then we have a different perspective of wise speech. So we use it. So we look at our words and we say, what are we saying to people? Again, we're going reflective. We're going with another perspective. What am I saying to the world? What am I saying through my words? Even if I sugarcoat it, even if I'm one of those that are blunt, or even if I'm one of those that are passive aggressive or passive at all, what am I saying? What am I communicating, not only to others, but to myself? If I'm a pushover, if I never speak up, then I'm communicating to myself that I'm not worth it. I'm not worth boundaries. I'm not worth love. I have low self-esteem. And the wise speech falls apart because it's not wise, because we can't speak. Our body language becomes reserved, brittle, break. If we become over aggressive, like, I'm going to come and get over everything, and it's, I'm going to be bigger than you, stronger than you, and I'm out to prove my King Kongness, then all of a sudden we're becoming so aggressive, and our speech is telling people that I'm insecure too. And so we have to learn to use these words in our body language, and speech is also thought, because speech, where does speech come from? Our consciousness, right? It comes from our thought. It comes from here and here, and together it formulates a vibration. And so we think about what we're going to say based on our thoughts and our emotions, right? If I'm having a happy day or a good day and I'm going out, well, I'm feeling good and I'm going to vibrate at a different level. If I'm feeling angry because, someone treated me horribly, or I just broke up with someone, or I'm just having a rotten day, well, then I'm going to walk around like a bulldog, and I'm going to present that speech and my actions and the thought process inside. And how many of us beat ourselves up? A lot, right? And so we have to learn to use that and walk away from that. So the next one before we go on a break is the right action. And so what is the wise action? What is wise action? Using ethical conduct to manifest compassion. Remember, everything always comes back to perspective, to being reflective, and to being compassionate. Always those three. Everything always comes back. And so what is the wise action? And so what does that mean? Using ethics. And this is what's funny, because ethics, just like morals, are subjective. And we'll be right back with that thought after these messages from the Life of Raina.
A message from the Life of Raina. We live in a world faced with many tough challenges. Our lives become chaotic and filled with disaster ever so quickly, most of the time before we even realize. Our issues beat down our mental mindset, and an imbalance of emotions become prevalent. The Life of Raina is dedicated to helping people on the deepest spiritual level. Miss Raina, the creator of Transcendental Development and Growth, works on your core issues and finds the solutions which allow you to break free from the emotional bondages of life, helping you achieve the life you've always wanted to live. Isn't it time that you lived life for you? Call the Life of Raina, 561-846-2190, and schedule your appointment today. That's 561-846-2190. Or email thelifeofraina@icloud.com.
All right, everybody, we are back for the last half of Transcendental Transformation. I'm your host, Miss Raina. And so, what we are talking about is ethics and morals, right? Using ethical conduct. Well, ethics can be a little subjective, right? Same with morals. Morals are always subjective, and same with ethics. Because what I believe to be moral and ethically, you may not. And this is why we fight, right? Moral and ethics are kind of on the scale of right and wrong and good versus bad. And we know Miss Raina's 5 no-nos are always create chaos. They're always chaos because they're judgments. They are judgments in the world we see. They are judgments we project on the world and others that we see, and even ourselves. So when we say using ethical conduct to manifest compassion, that means we have to ask ourselves, well, what is ethics to us? What is being ethical to us? What is our morals to us? We can't push those morals and ethics on anybody else. What is that to us? So we ask ourselves, well, am I living ethically? If you have the ideas of good versus bad, well, you're going to find chaos because there's no such thing as good versus bad. You're going to fight with others because you're going to judge someone else because they're not doing what you're doing. And it's the same thing that happened with that person that I was talking to the other day. They were like, well, I put these ideas on them, and when they don't do what I ask them to, I cut them out of my life, and poof, they're gone. And so their ethics and their morals are different because they're projecting what they think is ethically, and their actions are following because their speech is not the wise speech, and so it follows into the right or wise action. Because if we're not speaking compassionately and with truth, then our actions follow suit. And so we have to ask ourselves, well, what is ethics? What is ethics to me? And that doesn't mean, well, I must be nice all the time. I have to do this. I have to act like this. I have to wear certain things. That's not ethically. What is the actions? I always project it as, are you being honest? Are you living honestly? And that doesn't mean just speaking the truth, not lying. That means, are you living honestly? Is everything that you're doing, and this falls into the next one too, living right livelihood, but are the things that you're doing honest? Are you being honest with your friendships? Are you being honest with your relationships? Are you being honest with your family? Are you living honestly on a day-to-day? And that are you living to the fullest of your abilities? Or are you denying yourself? Are you denying the actions because of your insecurity? I know my little Padawan is probably not going to like this, but he said I can talk about him. So, one of the things that happens sometimes when we work together, because I'm always the easiest person to work with, and so sometimes I notice that there's miscommunication when we work together, and what ends up happening is there just seems to be a breakdown all the time, and it just seems to be this struggle. And so I ask him, I'm like, what's going on? I was like, why is it every time you come around me, all of a sudden you seem to break down, because you always say that you don't have these problems when you're not around me. And all of a sudden he's like, you know what? He's like, because I feel like I'm going to disappoint you. I feel like I'm not going to, what I'm doing is not going to be good enough. And I sat there and I thought, I was like, well, no, that's, and that kind of shows, because of how we speak to ourselves, the whys, and how we project to ourselves and what we see through ourselves, how these trickle down to each other. And so our actions now don't become honest, because now we're trying to live for somebody else. We're trying to make other people happy. We're trying to live up to an expectation and a potential that we set for ourselves that isn't realistic to other people. And if someone is expecting so much more from you than you're capable of, well, then either they're pushing you to be more because they see more, or that they're just trying to get you to be like them. And in that case, you'll never live up to those situations. So you have to live in your honesty. You have to know your limitations. You have to and live in it. If you're going to do a job, I always say, then do it to your fullest ability. If you always do, if you're going to have a friendship, then be honest and open with them, love them, care for them, be there for them. And if you're going to do that with yourself, that's the same thing. You must love and care for yourself, and your actions are dictated every day. That goes with health, that goes with food and nutrition, that goes with meditation, that goes with everything you do. The wise action, the ethical action, the honest action has to be in alignment with who you are. And that will bring us down to our fifth one. And so we look at our fifth one as the right livelihood, right? We are going to have the right livelihood, which is making a living through ethical and non-harmful means. So the wise livelihood, which is the extension, like I said, of the last, right? Is your work contributing to chaos? Are you just out to be the next big healer with the next big name, or the next big architect, or the next wonderful doctor that everyone praises, or the next, sport player that everyone signs autographs for, or you sign autographs for, and lives in the big condos? What is your objective? Where are you going with your ideas? Are you making a wise livelihood? And there's nothing wrong with having any of that stuff. It's just that is where it's coming from. The ethical, the honesty, the compassionate side of you has to be in alignment with who you are. And so you always know if it's causing chaos, because it will. Chaos follows chaos because we create chaos. Because when chaos is happening, we're not being truthful. There is always lies in chaos. There is always freedom in truth. So as a long time ago, they say the truth shall set you free, right? Well, that is so true, because yes, when you are living honestly, which means truthful with who you are, not with what you've been told to act like, or what you've been told to believe, what you've been told to do, and how you've been told to be raised. Are you living truthful, and are you living that way? The chaos dissipates. Chaos always comes with lies. It always comes with dishonesty. And so if you find that you're always fighting with your mom or dad, if you're always bouncing from job to job, if you're always doing whatever it is you're doing, and it's just always chaotic, nothing seems to pan out, then you're not living with a wise livelihood. And this has to trickle into your work habits too. So not just, are you doing, I told you many times ago that I was raised in an HVAC company. We had a great business in Illinois, and my dad wanted me to take over the business. And every time I tried to fulfill my dad's wishes, it created chaos and turmoil on me, because that's not what I wanted to do. I did not want to do that stuff. I wanted to do what I'm doing now. I always wanted to go that way because that was what's inside of me. And no matter how many times I try to walk away and say, that's it, I'm not helping people anymore. They don't deserve it. When I give, sometimes I falter too. But it creates chaos because I'm walking away from who I am. And then through perspective, through being reflective, and through having compassion for myself and understanding that, hey, I'm human too, and these people are human, and they're just trying to do what they think, and I'm trying, and then it brings me back to where I need to be, which is which is my wise livelihood. And so that means I'm being honest with my work. And I always tell people, even anybody, when they work with me, I want you to always you put forth the best effort that you can. Even my dad used to drill this into my head, but I always knew it was true, was if you're going to do something, do it right. You shouldn't have to redo something. You shouldn't have to do something over for your boss or whatever. You should do it and do it right the first time, because that's the way it goes. And it just changes your ethics. It just changes the honesty in you, because now I'm putting my energy into it. Now I'm showing pride. Hey, this is who I am. This is my name. This is what I'm about. And because of what I'm about, now all of a sudden I'm going to be able to, put in true of what I am, and it shows, and a lot of people will see the difference too. So the sixth one, I believe we're on number 6, and that is the right effort. So cultivating wholesome qualities, releasing unwholesomeness. So what does that mean? Cultivating wholesome qualities, releasing unwholesomeness. Well, this is a tough one for a lot of people because, again, it goes back to a little bit of our ethics and our personal ethics and how much energy we put into ourselves, how much energy we put into the things we care about, our world. And a lot of times we look at this, and again, this is subjective because a lot of times we really don't know because we've been taught religion, we've been taught spirituality, we've been taught all these misguided information that's supposed to tell us how to live a life. But we misinterpret everything and we take things so literally that we get disconnected from what it is. And then we become angry. And this is one of the things that I say that you have to learn to do. When you become an idea, and so that means that when you accept that this idea is true and there can be no other way, that stops growth and that creates anger and hate because now you've closed off your view from life. You've closed off any information from coming in and to say, hey, well, there might be other ways around it, or there might be other, experiences that are leading to the same way. And so we become anger, we become non-compassionate, and we can't understand others. And so we start judging and we start hating, we start fighting, especially when things change. These are the people that don't like change because we can't understand what's going on. No, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the way that life is supposed to be. I was taught this from a young age. There's books on this that say this is the right way, and we become hateful and judgmental. And then we become powerless because we give ideas to these words. And so our effort, our wholesomeness, and it doesn't mean being a good person, wholesome qualities doesn't mean that. It means releasing judgment, releasing the anger, releasing the hate, releasing the pain and suffering, like allowing yourself to change, allowing growth to come in at new information. And if something bumps the ego and you're like, no, that's not the way it's supposed to be, then understanding to say, hey, you know what, maybe this information is trying to help me grow. Maybe it's trying to change me in a way that was beneficial to me. And I mean, isn't that what we're all supposed to be trying to do anyways? We're here to learn, we're here to experience, we're here to gain perspective. And if we're not allowing our effort to be wise, and we're not putting effort into ourselves, then we can't grow, we can't change. And that the judgment, that chaos ensues. The seventh one is right mindfulness. So the wise mindfulness, right? Well, now we're getting into awareness, right? A whole body awareness, the whole mindset, the awareness of what's around us, not just outside in the outside world, but just everything, the awareness. And awareness is huge because we are not aware on a daily basis. We're not. If we are consumed in work, if we're consumed in ego, we're consumed in fighting on Facebook, and we're consumed in trying to always be right, or we're consumed in trying to prove that we're so wise and enlightened that we know everything, and we're just talking down everything. We're not aware. And I talked about the jump in 2025 that's starting to take place now. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to have a rude awakening because they're not aware. You must be allowed to let yourself see yourself for who you really are. Every day on that couch, when my meditations, I always tell you, I go into the void, I go into where God or goddess would be, and I go into nothing but darkness. I am there, nothing but my consciousness and my thought. And in that thought, I am reflective of who I am, my daily actions, my word, my speech, my everything. And I go through it day by day and everything. And I see what my reflection, and I become aware, and I'm saying, okay, information, talk to me, teach me, tell me what I'm doing, tell me where I'm going, because the information is passing through because I'm allowing it to. And so now when I'm in my waking day, I'm aware of what's going around me. I see the reactions, I feel people's energies. I can start to dictate what's happening in life because I can see it unfolding, because everything has signs. Everything leads up to a certain point. And that is awareness. Awareness is reflective, awareness is perspective, and mindfulness is the same thing. You must be mindful of how you feel, what you do, and all these other steps throughout the day, plus the Four Noble Truths. It's a lot. I know for a lot of people say, wow, Miss Raina, that sounds exhausting. I got to constantly be aware. But I always say this. if you move to a new city, it can be overwhelming, right? You don't know the streets, you don't know where all the shops are, you don't know where everything's at. It's new, and you're overwhelmed. And you start driving around the streets, you start finding shops, you start finding where all the Home Depots are and all that stuff. And after a couple months, you just know the layout, and you know all the back streets, you know how to cut through, right? And you become aware of the surroundings. That's the same and it becomes second nature. That's the same thing. It's going to seem like a lot to be aware of at first because there's so much going on, but then it becomes second nature because that's what the body, that's what the soul, that's what who we are in essence is meant to do. It takes more energy and more effort for us to pretend what we're doing. That's why we're exhausted all the time. People ask me, why am I so chronically fatigued? It's not because people are stealing your energy or there's energy vampires biting you with their teeth. It's the fact that you're spending all this time and energy trying to be fake, trying to chase ideas of egotism and greed and money and create this idea so people think that you're an amazing person instead to get to know who you really are. When you find out how amazing you are through perspective and reflective, all of a sudden everything else falls into place because you realize how amazing of a person you are. And no matter who says what, you know in truth how great you are. And that doesn't come from egotism. That doesn't come from saying I'm the greatest. It comes from a knowing. It comes from self-love. And that's really what it is. All right, so we got a couple minutes, so I'm going to talk about the last one. So the right concentration, or wise concentration, meditation, or other dictated or concentrated practices. So Buddha believed in proving that meditation brings awareness, and it does. But it's not just meditation. You don't have to go into a meditation to gain this concentration. You can be reflective. Concentration, yes, it does mean being like you could do yoga. It does mean you could do meditations of any type or whatever. You can do breath work. You can do so many different types. But what it means is being focused on life, focused on the awareness, training yourself to constantly be aware of everything that's going around and allowing all this information to process. And that's why meditation and yoga and breath work and those type of things are so helpful to the human experience, because it allows our monkey mind, it allows our ego to settle down so that we can hear ourselves speak to ourselves. And our body always knows what's going on, because anytime we're sick, it lets us know. Anytime we're lying or being untruthful, it lets us know. Anytime anything's going on in our life that's causing us disharmony, that's our soul speaking to us, our universe speaking to us, saying, hey, we're out of alignment here. You can go on for so long, but I'm going to come back and kick you in the butt and create all this chaos until it brings you back to a center. And that's where the neutrality of duality has to come in, as we've spoken on past shows. So you have to have that understanding. You have to have that concentration. You have to have that will and drive to do that. And that's one of the things that we have to understand. So those are the Eightfold Path to Enlightenment. Those are Buddha's way of ideas. And all these ideas can be proven and provided in today's world. No matter how the world changes, no matter if we become AIs and we become a super race, advanced, outgoing from planet to planet and galaxy to galaxy, all these, we are still a soul, we are still a consciousness experiencing, and all these types of experiences, as long as we incarnate here in the third plane, we can apply any of these to no matter what part of our life is. And that's the wonderful thing. Even when we're consciousness, even when we cross over, everyone thinks we go to this heaven and everything's all happy-dory and we're just running around in fields all day and like little kids. There is a dimension like that, but it's not like that. We still are trying to understand and formulate and be reflective, and that's what different dimensions do for us. And a lot of times we may start out in the seventh dimension, but we may go to other dimensions to help us grow to understand before we come back to the third dimension and relive in another incarnation. And so there's so many things that this world and enlightenment and there's concepts that we have yet to understand because we're such a young race. And so open your minds, people, to so much more. Don't just accept what people have told you. Just because the world accepts one religion or a god or an idea or politics or something doesn't mean you have to conform to it. That is very stifling. Grow past what society has taught you and learn to experience what you can be. All right, everybody, that is tonight's show. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, you can follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/Transcendental Transformation, which is located, I think it's on this side right here. I got to get used to those little things. You also at YouTube at youtube.com/Transcendental Transformation. Visit our website, soulandspiritguide.com, and sign up for the VIPs for hidden shows, the VIPs for guests we have. Sometimes they'll offer special gifts and everything like that. And if you're part of our newsletter, you get those special gifts. And if you have any questions, email me at transcendentaltransformations, that's with an S, at gmail.com. And always remember to believe in yourself, and it's not our abilities or our talents that make us who we are, but it is our choices. Thank you and have a wonderful day.